Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on time. I can see we already have a healthy audience in the room. This is very exciting. I've been looking forward to this particular webinar for quite some time now, and our slides will be appearing in just 1 second. But let me just say to you that Oncology's omnichannel illusion. That's the topic for today, and we've had several hundred of you sign up. I'd like this to be a multiple way conversation, not just a top down. So if you could possibly start by introducing yourself, find yourself that chat window, say hello, say where you're calling from, say where you're dialing in from, and just, tell us what it is that you're really most interested in hearing about. So, oncology teams are pouring fresh resources into Omnichannel, but only a few of us are really reaping the rewards. And obviously, it's not just exclusive this to oncology, but we think that it's particularly acute, and we have some data to back it up, which we will share with you. Very good. Thank you so much for everyone who's introducing themselves. It's great to see. 38% of people are actively deploying omnichannel tactics. Only 5% rate themselves as optimized for impact. You may hear that stat once or twice in the next hour. The simple truth is that almost everyone is playing the game. Hardly anyone feels like they're actually playing it well. And dashboards are buzzing with activity, but fewer of half of our oncology leaders are actually trusting their agencies to prove marketing ROI. So it leaves us in this weird situation where we're chasing metrics that don't even necessarily move the needle on actual prescriber behavior, actual market share, actual influence in the market. So I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting my slides up for some reason, but I want to start us off with a poll question. So if you look at your screen, it should appear in just a second, and it's kind of a scene-setting starting question. And I want you to, it's actually a three-parter, so you've got some good fun questions to answer. And you can see the first one is, which statement best captures the current impact of omnichannel deployments in oncology today? Second one, when your oncology team celebrates success, what's that evidence actually based on? And finally, is omnichannel the right approach for all oncology customers and situations? So I'll leave that open for a couple of minutes while I introduce the panel, and then we will get to it. So I'm your host. I hate the slide, but my team love it, so it's there. Quick, let's get rid of that one. Move to the next one, please, please, please. There we go. Much prettier faces. That's what we like to see. So let me just quickly introduce Katerina, someone who I've had the pleasure of knowing now for 2 or 3 years, always has something interesting to say, always at the forefront of pushing us forward. Indeed, she was even slightly allergic to the word omnichannel, as many of us are, when we were recruiting for this webinar. But she's here, she's here. She's got 15 years of experience, over 15 in pharma, and she spent really her career turning complex science into that impactful storytelling, but patient-centric as well. And she's obviously at Novartis, where she's leading a regional medical strategy for oncology brands, and she's bringing together both the commercial insight as well as medical leadership to drive adoption and innovation. Super pleased that you can be here. Thank you so much, Katerina. Yazan, you would have seen if you had been at the recent Pharmageddon event, where he was most definitely a crowd favorite. There's a good reason for that. He actually has some pretty useful and engaging things to say. I'm pleased that you're all going to experience that in just a moment. He's with MSD, and he brings a strong blend of pharma, digital, and marketing experience, of course. He's been responsible for customer experience, for customer engagement, and omnichannel consultant as well on the vendor side of things in the past. He holds a master's in creativity and marketing, in fact. So passionate about seamless and data-driven experiences. Thank you so much, Yazan, for joining us yet again on my stage. Julie is Chief Client Officer at BGB Group. And if you're not familiar with BGB, well, you should be. They've been partners in making sure today's webinar happens, and wonderful to work with throughout the whole process. I'm very impressed with the potential and strength of BGB. They really do find initiatives that strengthen client relationships, and for nearly, oh, sorry, someone's trying to call me. Go away, go away. Sorry, probably should have, my do not disturb mode wasn't working for some reason. Anyway, Julie is passionate about how to make omnichannel work. She's been working for 30 years across pharma biotech to again, just the same as Katerina, translate that complex science into clear communication. And she's been a leader across BG for since 2019, and really helping build not just operational excellence, but strategic insight as well. Thank you so much, Julie. And last but most definitely not least is Shaima. Shaima, gold star to her because she came on board relatively late on this webinar after we lost somebody. And she is a commercial and customer engagement leader at AstraZeneca with more than 15 years of experience across pharma and medtech, building teams, creating omnichannel and insight capabilities from scratch, and most interestingly, leading transformations that connect science, tech, and strategy. So Shaima, an absolute pleasure to have you on board. Now, I'm about to show you the results of what you actually spoke about, what you actually answered when you signed up for today's webinar. But before I do that, I'm actually going to end the current poll. Let's have a look at the questions you've just been answering. It'll appear on your screen just a second. For some reason, Zoom takes a moment these days. Can you see that? I think you can. So the results. Number one, which statement best captures the current impact of omnichannel deployments in oncology today? It's a bit of a normal distribution, you could say, but with active taking over half of the vote there. So difficult to link to measurable change. So we're good. We're actually not too bad here, but we've got some room for improvement for sure. We're all in the right room. That's good to know. When your oncology team celebrates success, what's the evidence based on? Engagement or awareness metrics, reaches, clicks, and opens, taking a third of the vote there. Well, someone would classify that as vanity metrics, wouldn't they? Is that really just because it's the easiest thing to measure or because it's the best thing to measure? Maybe we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then thirdly, is omnichannel the right approach for all oncology customers and situations? Yes, say a third, mostly 2/5 of people, and 15% selectively, and 6% say not at all. Omnichannel is a distraction. Interesting. Well, we can debate that. So let's have a look at what we said in the run-up to today's webinar. What were the results of that? Next slide, please. Let's cycle through these quickly. So the top answer was tracking metrics that reflect prescriber behavior or market impact. So that is the biggest challenge that is being faced. 28% was other, not very helpful. Fragmented technology or siloed execution was also pretty darn high. Interesting, a very polarized result here. Really hardly anything for the other two categories. Regulatory is not the reason. Agency performance also not the reason. Interesting. That was just the first question. The second question looked a bit like this. Another quite evenly spread set of results. What were they? Let's have a look. 28%, the question, in case you haven't read it, is which area feels most in need of improvement in your current omnichannel strategy? So 28% say driving meaningful behavior change with HCPs, having that impact. 23% connecting the dashboards and activities to real business outcomes, perhaps some dashboard fatigue, some dashboards disconnected from reality there. Next, we have optimizing AI or digital tools for impact rather than activity. And then streamlining internal processes and breaking down silos at 12%. I've put the last one on the end because it's just other again. Okay, so lots of things to do. Before we get going with the discussion, I just want to remind everybody that all of our speakers today are speaking from a personal capacity. They're not necessarily representing their companies, so don't assume that they are. And yes, we are recording today's session. You don't need to ask. We will send it to you afterwards. Okay, panel, let's get you in the room. Please do turn on your cameras. Let's take the slides away. There we go. Look at those. I promised you beautiful faces, and I am pleased that I could deliver. Thank you so much for being here, panel. Okay, so I'm curious as to whether there's any reaction to what we saw on some of those poll questions already. Anyone felt strongly about any of that? But also, I want you to just tell us things from your own perspective at your companies. What's your challenge? Why is there a disconnect between what we want and what we're getting in terms of those results? So who wants to go first with that question? Everyone, clearly. Katerina has unmuted herself. That's a good start. Go on, Katerina.
I can go. I don't hold very well the silence, so I'll go.
Excellent, because I love an awkward silence, so I'll just
You
stay
do, you
quiet.
do,
You
you
can
do.
fill it.
That
That's
power of
perfect.
holding the silence is very important. So, Paul, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. It's really a pleasure to be here with this amazing panel, and of course, with you disrupting, as always, you and in-patient health, the way we think. So I thank you for saying I'm allergic to Omnichannel. I'm not allergic to Omnichannel. I just like to think about impact first. So impact to me is the most important thing we do every day, and then Omnichannel, of course, a way to reach the impact we want. I kind of structured my thinking in three steps. The first one, I think omnichannel as it is, the blend of face-to-face, but as well as tech enablement is absolutely critical. Although what I see and what we just saw in the poll, only 7% really have it embedded in the brand strategy and the way we work. And the reality I know still celebrates and rewards significantly just one piece of the omnichannel pie, which is the face-to-face. So I continue seeing celebration and keep very hard KPIs on face-to-face interactions. So I think there is an underlying belief and also a fear, but the belief is that face-to-face is still the most impactful. So we hyper index on face-to-face and under index on tech-enabled tools. The healthcare system is just changing so much that what we are really trying to do is to make communication, and so from a medical perspective, we are so in tuned with medical education and broad medical education that I think more and more this broad medical education needs to go via AI and tech embedded, because the healthcare system is asking for other tools. Time to access of medicines in the healthcare systems is not improving. On the contrary, there are a lot of bottlenecks in terms of capacity in the systems to really absorb our new drugs. So there are so many bottlenecks currently in the system, and some of them will definitely need strong partnerships and face-to-face. And some can probably be more leveraged with a tech-enabled. And so a full omni-channel blend and flavor, but I'm not seeing it yet. I'm seeing it, we over-indexing in some parts of it and clearly under-indexing in others. And I think it all starts internally by reshaping the KPIs. And now I shut.
Thank you, Katerina. I love it. You've been comprehensive and you've thrown down the gauntlet. So I appreciate what you're saying. Who wants to respond to that? Yazan, you've
Yeah.
go on.
Since Katerina opened on the KPIs, I'll go in. I really like that you said you started this webinar by saying vanity metrics. I mean, this is a word that gets me started. I definitely think not only in oncology, but in oncology specifically, our dashboards are mostly vanity metrics. I mean, they are colorful, they are automated, they are nicely done. Let's assume that people use them on daily basis, but they are mostly vanity metrics. They are channel-specific dashboards that tell us what's the open rate and the click-through rate, and maybe what's the number of minutes that the sales rep spent on a CLM slide, and so on and so forth. And I think this is where our problem starts, because I don't think we should be looking at these vanity metrics. We actually should start from an actual behavior or a clinical behavior that starts the actual shift of did we do something that's successful or not. And that's not an open rate. I mean, a doctor that opens an email or downloads a PDF doesn't mean that he's going to prescribe a drug tomorrow. An actual metric that counts is did we shift the behavior of the HCP throughout their clinical decision making, and that can't be measured just by an open rate or a visit on a landing page. So I would just wanted to add that on top of what Katerina said.
I'd love to add to what Katarina and Yazan you just said around the measuring what we're measuring. And I love that you brought in the KPIs, but also Yazan, like I was just going to add the same thing you did, which is why are we measuring click-through rates? At the end of the day, what we have to report up to our leadership is that we actually had a change in behavior, and that change in behavior equaled some impact to the business that we're doing. And when we look at the ways that we're looking at tracking that customer behavior, I think we haven't figured out how to track that customer behavior change, or where in the customer's journey we've actually impacted something that they made a left turn instead of a right turn. So love to hear some of your thoughts on what are the ways that when you look at that customer journey, that the journey that the physician takes, what are the inflection points within that journey that we can measure in omnichannel, right? And when we talk about omnichannel, Katarina, I'm not allergic to the word either, so I'm glad that you're not either. But how many of you guys, like we started with multi-channel, we're on omnichannel, and so many of us are in this thing of like, now I'm hearing opti-channel, like, yeah, that makes sense, right? We should be optimizing the channel, personalizing it for the segments that we have. But then that enters into a whole nother conversation, which I'd love some insights into. Omnichannel only works if we actually understand the segments and how they want to connect with us as well. And I don't know if we figured that out either. So would love to understand how you guys feel about that too.
Mm. Shaim, I would love to hear from you. And if you have any direct answers to what Julie's just said, then please go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear everyone's thoughts. I'm kind of so I completely agree about the word omnichannel, right? And it's just I don't think we're allergic to the word per se, but it's just we're all trying to do the same thing, and I feel like we get lost in like, okay, what is the journey going to look like? What tools are we going to use? We're asking the wrong questions. We really do need to start with what Katerina and Yazan were saying. Like, we need to think about what is the problem we're trying to solve, right? And I think one of the reasons that happens is that we're thinking of analytics and measurements as an afterthought, and we're trying to see what we need to measure or what we need to gain as an insight after we are looking at the results. But it really needs to be brought to the forefront. Like, what are we trying to measure? What behavior change are we trying to drive? And how are we going to know that, yes, we've achieved it, right? And I think that's where we need to start. And we get lost in all of this fancy jargon and, the opti-channel, omni-channel. None of that matters, right? Is do we have the right data that we're measuring? Are we gaining the right insights? And most importantly, are we able to drive behavior change as a result, whether that's externally for our customers or internally within our teams and the way they're leveraging all of the channels, the information that they have at their disposal?
Well, I wasn't going to do it yet, but since you've all really focused on this topic of what are we actually measuring and why the hell are we measuring it, I'm going to launch another poll question in the background here, which is on exactly that topic. So I would love to hear what the audience thinks in response to that. But why is this so difficult, guys? I mean, why is it so difficult to understand what we're actually aiming for when we begin this process, and why is it so hard for us to focus on conversion? As Yasin says in the chat window, not sure if you saw, how are we measuring that behavioral change except for self-reporting? What is it? Can we agree on a standard here? Maybe we don't need to all be on the same metric, of course, but can we agree on maybe something we don't do? We can at least agree on that. Can we agree on something that we believe genuinely does show, and something that we can all at least aspire to get towards? What is that?
I'll start, Paul. And while we're waiting for the poll results, I think, and I saw Yasin's comment in the chat, and I think we will never be able to pinpoint one metric that counts. But at least, and I completely agree with Shaima, with what Shaima said, is that a measurement framework should not be at the end once we launch a campaign. It should be something that we think about throughout the strategy of our launch of a product. And that means that we can still use qualitative measures, which is we can still ask the sales reps to help us understand if we have done a behavior shift. But we can also rely on leading KPIs that can give us this notion of a lagging metric. So, for example, if we're trying to move the oncologist in if we're trying to move the oncologists in an adoption ladder, there are leading KPIs that would give us some notions or some primary understanding on are they really going or changing their behavior, and then we still can rely on market research and sales reps to help us make this data more qualitative at the 6 months mark or at the 1 year mark. But it's not only this or that. I think there is a relationship between both of them.
Anyone else?
Yeah, and it's just I'm so glad that you said that, because I think our participants are actually following along, because someone just put in there, but what about the leading indicators? Are some of these metrics that we are measuring leading indicators for potential? So I think it was Neil who said it. And it's funny, right? Because we've been calling them vanity metrics, like click-throughs, download rates, but they are leading. But then what's the connection, going back to the face-to-face that Katarina mentioned? What's the connection between these leading indicators? And I think we had a conversation earlier, right, when we were prepping for this conversation, that in order for some of our digital channels or omni-channels, like, the digital within the omni-channels to work, we need to tie it back to some of the face-to-face interactions, that interaction. So we had a conversation leading up to this one. Hey, does it matter? Are we all in our roles as digital or omni-channel leads functioning in a vacuum, or are we working with our functional partners to make sure that all of the engagements with our customers are orchestrated so that we get that behavioral change? And I would love to understand, that's something that I'm driving towards. Like, hey, from a sales force, field force, to a what's happening at the the market access level, to what's happening on the omni and the digital channels. How are we orchestrating so that the customers that we're engaging are getting similar messages, or that we're tracking like the improvements or the changes in behavior in the ways that matter the most? I don't think we're doing that really well right now. I think we're still all very functionally siloed to some degree.
Well, thank you, Julie, for taking the bait on what we're not doing really well right now. And I kind of want the other panelists, because I teased it a little bit a second ago, didn't I? What do we want to stop doing? I want the panel to just tell me, before we show these poll results, what's the most misleading metric that you've seen celebrated? Or what's the thing that if you held a magic wand, would you ask us never to do it ever again? And that you unfortunately have seen. Let's just have a bit of fun, shall we?
I can start on this one, because I think we talk about vanity metrics a lot, email opens, click-through rates, etc. But one that I'm guilty of measuring as well, that I don't think is giving us a lot of insight, is journey completion. So we come up with these arbitrary journeys. We have like, okay, if the physician opens this email, attends this webinar, they are now an advocate, right? And it's funny, because I know more of our physicians who are advocates in real life. I know they are, right? Like advocates for our treatments for the right patients, but they don't make it to the advocate phase that we've defined in our omnichannel journeys. So I think a lot of us are guilty of creating these big, long journeys with all of our adoption funnels and like steps that the physician needs to take, hoops they need to jump through to get to that phase. But it's really not getting tied into what we're actually trying to see, whether that's testing to treatment interval, whether that's increase in prescriptions. So I think we really need to be careful about what we're defining as success, and not just like, oh, as long as they complete the journey, yay, our campaign is a success.
That was a great option, Shaima, and very well done for personalizing and say it's something you're guilty of yourself. That's very humble of you. I appreciate it. Katerina Yazan, have you got anything that you can share?
Yeah, I love the discussion, because my first question is, why do we need so many metrics for digital channels if in total what we want to do is shift, being it advocacy or adoption, through an omni-channel, a blend of omni-channel, a blend of channels. So I still think we over-index on, we need a lot of metrics for just very specifically for the digital part. And are our face-to-face calls high quality? And are they really promoting the change that we need? So I think in total, I wouldn't spend a lot of time reinventing the wheel on the digital enabled. I would say we have this objective. Volume drives So activity drives impact. We know this. Volume of activity drives impact. So I really hate when we say, volume doesn't matter, because in my experience, volume of activity is a key success factor for impact. So you need volume, but on top of this, you need quality. So it's really how you blend the channels and you make absolute sure that also the face-to-face is high quality and the omni-channel, whatever the digital channel, is high quality. And to me, it's much more about what do you choose to fuel through digital versus what you choose to fuel through face-to-face. So to me, it's not, let's not be too hard on one channel or the other, is massive medical education can go perfectly well, and whoever opens. And then we take the decisions, right? But still we need it. It's volume. We need this volume. We need to reach as many customers as possible. Whenever we have a new data set, and sorry, I'm very medical driven, but whenever we have a new campaign, we need that in tech-enabled exercise and that volume. So if we have 2,000, 3,000, I don't know if it's good or not. Sometimes I have a hard time. We are celebrating, comparing with what? So I think we just need benchmarks of success and say, this is what good looks like, and what are my competitors doing? Because then I can celebrate. If I'm doing better, I can celebrate. If I'm getting more clicks, I can celebrate. And I'm sorry, but this is really true. This is a super competitive ecosystem, oncology. So to me, it's more how we blend it together. We don't over-index on being very hard on the digital side, but we keep the volumes, we celebrate volumes, and on top, we maximize the activities that need to be face-to-face. And also there, we thrive for high quality.
So Katerina, and yes, and don't worry, I'll come to you in a second. But Katerina, one of the words that I'm often allergic to is the word benchmarking. But you have said that we really do need to understand our relative performance in such a competitive environment. Am I being a little bit idealistic here by saying that we should be somehow moving beyond the benchmarking, because you seem to be really advocating for it?
I absolutely advocate. I've seen us celebrate mediocrity. Okay.
Because of the lack of benchmarking, I see.
Because we don't know. We are celebrating. And then when we ask, let's look outside. We are miserable. I'm not talking about my teams or my region.
Don't worry, your recruitment campaign's still going okay, Katerina. It's all good.
But we cannot celebrate if we are not better than something else. You see what I mean? I've seen us celebrate mediocrity, and we are a bit blind sometimes. And that I think we should definitely avoid.
Okay, so Yazan, I'm going to let you have a word on this, and I'm also going to end the poll, and we'll see the results of that appear while you're talking. So feel free to comment.
I think, Paul, you know my answer. I've repeated it with you multiple times, and maybe Katerina will not agree with me, but I think reach and frequency are actually, for me, vanity metrics. I wish I never see reach and frequency ever again in any dashboard that I work on or I see regarding HCPs, because for me, these metrics do not give us any information. They just give us how much effort we actually put to put a message in front of an HCP, but we don't even know if the HCP actually receives relevant information in terms of content from a reach and a frequency kind of measurement. So I would only use reach and frequency when they are combined with personalization of messaging. And that is where we're going, I think, into AI, but I'm not going to open the topic yet.
It's inevitable. Don't worry. It's inevitable.
The only way I would accept a reach and a frequency metric is when it's combined with actual personalization of content. And that tells me if this doctor had received relevant information for them or for their practice, and how many times did they receive it. So these would be my two combinations.
So combining reach with personalization, that's an interesting one. I'm just trying to get my head around that. But thank you, Yazan. I really appreciate that. We've been talking, time is flying when we're having fun. We're already halfway through. Julia, I believe that you might have something to show us that might help us make the transition from the talk of the challenges and the frustrations to talk of solutions and answers. So if you're able to share your screen, or we can. Oh, there you go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So just quickly show us this if you can. And
Yeah.
I'm not
Did I
reading
do
out
it
the
right?
results of the poll because I'm sure you all know how to read yourselves, but it's quite interesting to have a look.
Guys, did I do it right? Are you seeing
We
my
can see,
screen or are
yes.
you seeing just another version of me? Thank you. All right. Well, you know what, Yazan, I'm going to take your bait and show you the slide that I think makes the most sense for us to transition to another conversation. You know, in the survey, and I think Paul, you also just dropped it as a resource, you know, and we have all this data for you. If you take a look at the question we asked, the panel that we asked like, what are the AI, where are you actually leveraging AI in the ways that you look at omnichannel in oncology? And you know, none of us were really shocked by the fact that most of us should be using AI in data analytics. But what was actually kind of intriguing or interesting was that 68% of those that we surveyed actually are using AI for content generation and 55 on campaign personalization, which aligns, but also is kind of questionable because what I also wanted to share with you guys is one of the other questions that we asked was, what are the things that are the biggest obstacles in omnichannel, especially in oncology? And the top and the first and third things were, hey, we're really concerned about regulatory and compliance complexity, right? 50%, that was a significant issue. So when you bring in AI content generation, that is definitely kind of like, okay, how do you go manage through that? And then technology integration challenges. We think most of that 47%, why is integration of technology such a challenge? It's likely, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is it cost? Is it back-end technology, or is it just not understanding which technology to use? But I'd love to understand if you guys agree or disagree with how AI is being leveraged, because for us, content generation is obviously a significant part of where we focus. I am on the agency side, that is what I do, but I'd love to understand how I could be better partners. And I am going to stop sharing because I don't think you need to look at this.
That's good. Any reaction from our panel though? Go on,
So,
Shima. Go on.
yeah. So I can speak to the integration part, right? And from my perspective, why I've seen that be a challenge. And I think it's about using too many different platforms. So a lot of us do tend to use different platforms for different channels or different applications, and we're not able to see all of that data in one place. So if you can't connect your data, you can't really attribute it to anything. And I think it's really important for us to maybe work toward a place where we can see all of that information in one place, so all of our interaction data in one place. And from my perspective, I think that's the challenge that maybe people are speaking to, that they're not able to do that. And it is hard to do that, technically speaking.
Is that affecting our ability to work cross-functionally as well, Shima, which of course we all know would be a desirable thing to do. And this kind of control of our own fiefdom and not invented here syndrome is actually driving up those boundaries between us and affecting our ability to be customer-centric, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you have the medical team kind of storing their data in a silo. And a lot of times we do tend to use compliance as a crutch. And, you know, again, with the proper planning, with the proper safeguards, it is possible to be able to see your insights in a place that can be used cross-functionally, which does drive that cross-functional alignment and early in the planning stages. So we are all aligned on, hey, this is what we're going to measure. This is what success is going to look like. And then we all can feel like we co-created it, and we're all likely to be happy at the end of it.
Well, it turns out that I do have a poll question on exactly that too. So I'm going to launch that, and you can have a go at answering that while we talk a bit more about this point. Yazan and Katerina, I want to hear if you've got responses to what Julie said, or indeed what Shima said.
Yeah, maybe I'll continue on what Chaima said, which is about the technology, close to heart. So I mean, I am a bit surprised that it's the third one. I would have put it as the first one, as the first problem that we're facing, because honestly, to be able to do real omni-channel work or even multi-channel work, I mean, and to be able to deliver high customer experience, the first thing or the base layer is actually technologies that connect with each other, or technologies that at least send the data to the same place so we can actually analyze and understand the full customer journey. So I think that is where we're talking about like today in our environment, data lives in 6, 7 different places. CRM is not fully used. Analytics platforms don't pull data from all of the from all of the data warehouses. Our agencies are trying to follow channel-specific metrics. Our sales reps are following channel-specific metrics. So the first thing I think is tech being able to be integrated. And I mean, I'm not surprised that 47% find that it's the integration is the major barrier. And especially when we look at it from an oncology view. I mean, oncology is a little bit more complicated because one drug can be 10 tumor types, can be 20 indications, can be several lines of therapy, dozen of prescriber types. We have not only one prescriber making the decision, but we have like tumor boards and nurses and specialists and so on and so forth. And without technology integration, the medical team and the commercial team are not talking with each other, or at least they are not having the same place where they are pulling the data from. And that for me is one of the major barriers to be able to deliver omnichannel first, but second, to be able to build AI applications that can help us build on that. Because to be honest, garbage in, garbage out, and I think we are garbage in. I mean, at least for the moment.
Supposed to be talking about solutions at this point, yes, and I'm feeling depressed again listening to you, but I'm sure you'll get there in the end. Katerina.
Yeah, completely agree with what was said. It's boring that we all agree. I think in a way, systems integration still depends on well, the info that is in different systems still depends a lot, especially at the country level, where all this magic happens from these cross-functional meetings that need to happen all the time to guarantee alignment and exchange of information. So we still see this a lot at the country level. But maybe I'm not really passionate about the systems part in technology integration. So I think I can speak with more energy about the other factor, which is the second one, which in general, they were all very similar. I mean, 50, 49, 47, which is again, this difficulty in measuring ROI and attribution. And I think while we might solve all the problems in the systems, if the top management is not convinced that the omnichannel is really returning more on every dollar invested, this will not fly. And this is the reality I see. So although I don't agree that volume is not important, I think volume of activity is critical, especially in oncology, where we have many stakeholders and a lot of data coming out every time. I still think it's very important that we are able to measure which channels have the highest ROI for each activity. So this to me is probably the one piece that I'm not yet convinced that we can actually move forward and drive. I agree that because AI has a lot of hype. So people are super enthusiastic about experimenting AI. No one is enthusiastic about experimenting omnichannel, the reality I see. But AI, everybody is. So and we are doing a lot of AI integration I wouldn't say integration of technology, but we are doing a lot of AI experiments when it comes to tailorization of, for example, tailoring content to segments, aggregating insights. I don't want to say much more. This is very high level, but I think AI will actually enable us to get more of this ROI flavor from the digital channels than ever before. So I remain very optimistic.
Good to hear. We don't normally do therapy-specific webinars in patient health, but we are today. And Yazan did talk a second ago about the difficulties that working in oncology provides with the, multi-layering and, inexactness of the disease, if you like. Is there anything that we could say is an advantage, apart from the fact that obviously oncology has more dollars in it than other therapy areas? Is there anything that we can turn from a negative into a positive, or anything that we can do that perhaps other therapies cannot, because of the nature of the disease and the area that we're working in? Can we think of anything positive? Katerina's nodding her head, which is giving me some hope.
No, absolutely. So I've worked many TAs across across Novartis, and in oncology is probably the area where I see a stronger fuel on purpose.
Okay.
And so people go out of their way to get those medicines to patients. Everybody has, in their own experience, in their family, someone who died of cancer. And so it just becomes extremely personal and purpose driven. And we see this at country level a lot, because of course they deal much more even with the patients and with the physicians. But even at the headquarters level, whenever we have a town hall on oncology or topics related to oncology, it's the energy and the fuel and the passion and the purpose is there. So already I see a huge advantage on working on this area, because the human power is behind it.
Well, that's ironically where I think that companies like BGB should come into their own, because it allows us to put more into storytelling. It allows us to put more into the message itself. And I also think that the more sophisticated a treatment is, and let's be honest with you, oncology, it's pretty complex, the more we have to rely on that storytelling in order to be able to convey ourselves. And that's something that I think we often forget. We seem to just think that throwing more data at our customers is the way forward. And in fact, that just makes it harder for them. Interesting. Anyone else want to come in on this oncology advantages question before we move on? And I'm also going to close this poll in a few seconds. Only 50% of you have answered the poll. So I'll hold it open for 20 more seconds. Don't fall asleep just yet. Yeah, so anything else with the omnichannel advantage, please, from the panel?
So I can add to what Katrina's saying. I think beyond the purpose, which of course very, very important, but the smaller, I'll say, target group that we have, right? All the oncologists. So everyone sees it as a negative, right? Like we have a small customer base and it's harder to get to them and harder to reach them. But I think it's a big advantage. It enables us to know them better one-on-one. We know their needs. We know what they're looking for. So theoretically, it should make it easier for us to personalize our content, to actually create messaging that is valuable to them and do it in a timely manner. Now, we all know we struggle with this because I think, again, we're going for the wrong things. We're going for the reach, the volume, which I agree with Katerina is important, but only in combination, like Yazan was saying, only in combination with whether it's actually creating impact, providing value, changing behaviors. So I think that's an advantage that we have.
Well, maybe I'll add to what Shaima just said, which I completely agree with. I think the amount of prescribers being small is a positive point, but also the fact that oncology is not only driven by prescribers, the fact that oncology is driven by board members that are doing multiple things allow us the opportunity to test, to understand more, to try things differently, because you have one doctor that is a prescriber of multiple indications of the same product. So how do you communicate to the same doctor different indications and different data for the same drug, for example, while still being relevant and not spamming them? And I think this is where oncology is exciting, because in other therapeutic areas, you don't have this opportunity to do something similar.
Thank you, thank you. So you'll see I have shared the results, and thank you, by the way, for such words of positivity. I'm not used to it anymore with you, Yazan. Thank you for that. Which of the following statements resonates most with your experience? I'm looking at the answers here. So we've become better at tracking, not learning, gets a third of the vote, and a quarter of the vote. More channels haven't made us more relevant. So that's quite interesting. Are you coordinating cross-functional conversations, to go straight back to what Julie and Shaima were saying earlier? Partly. is what gets nearly 2/5 of the vote. Again, a bit of a normal distribution there, definitely room for improvement. And then finally, the global to local question. I realize this is not relevant for everyone in the room, particularly if you're in a US geography, for example, but who should own the responsibility for acting on omnichannel insights? Should it be global or local? Well, it's resoundingly local is the team here. They're the closest to the customer reality. So all of you HQ people, of which I realize our panel is exactly that, hands off. You can provide the technology, you can provide the ability, but it's your colleagues, your country colleagues who are going to actually shape that for you and hold the responsibility as well. Not sure if you agree or disagree, but that is what everybody thinks. Obviously happy for any response to that. I'm also aware that we have only 12 minutes left in this conversation. Time is flying. I want us to not just talk about where we're going, but how do we make it stick? How do we make it operational? How do we actually manage this now so that it becomes reality, not just for a week, but for years going forwards? So panel, 2 questions for you. Any response to the survey? If not, don't worry. And then the second part is your CEO for the day. Congratulations on your promotion. What do you do to make this stick within your own organization? What can you change, at a macro level where you can just do something top down and actually have it get adopted or changed within your organization permanently? Let's not let the power go to your heads, but I would love to hear your answers to that, including you too, Julie, of course.
Well, maybe
Julie, you're on mute.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can answer the first part, right? Just from the survey. When I was tracking the chats, there was a lot of conversation, I think, about how we look at omnichannel in the global versus the local, right? And we're talking about it from an HQ perspective. So I wasn't shocked by the results, Paul, but at the same time, I think it needs to be said that yes, the level of data that we have access to on US markets is significant, in North American markets is significantly different than some of the level of data that we have, prescribing behaviors, prescribing lift, whatever it may be, all the different metrics that we can look at. So I think one of the focuses for all of us from an HQ US organization based whatnot has to be looking at how we do it better once we figure out all the technology and all the resources that we have once we get to more the local markets, because I think we've learned quite a bit on what to do, what not to do. Part of this conversation is what to do, what not to do, right? And trying to figure out how to do it on the local markets. There are surrogate markers that we can use for prescription level data, in the EU and Asia markets. And it's about how unique and how creative are you going to be about the ways that you measure that return, right? And I love what we were all talking about, like the vanity metrics, the reach and frequency. I think we also need to just shift our thinking from what are we looking at return on those metrics that justify the spend versus justify the change in behavior. So we talk about these metrics, and a lot of them are actually focused on, can we justify what we spent to get that, right? And it needs to be, what did we actually get out of it? And I think that's really the conversation that I'm having internally is like, yes, justify the spend. That's what reach and frequency is all about, right? But what did that reach and frequency actually get, and how do you measure that? And we haven't figured it out. And if anybody has any solutions that have been successful, I think all of us would be glad to hear it as well. So the global local tied to some of the conversation, Paul, I just wanted to put in, like, the ROI thing is going to keep me up at night for many, many more years.
I'm sorry to hear that, Julie, but I appreciate your perspective. You get to see across all of your clients, of course, and give us the voice of reason in this room. So I appreciate it. The benchmark almost, if you like, Katerina. So who else wants to come in on comments from the poll / Magic Wand CEO for the day? Katerina, go for it.
I can go. So 3 layers, CEO of the day. Sorry, I don't believe it's vanity. Volume matters. So volume as the base of the pyramid.
Not convince you. Okay. You guys can
Volume
fight.
is the base of the pyramid. And I'm sorry, also, we always have this perception in oncology that our target customers are a small group. I'm not saying they are not, comparing with other TAs, but what we are also learning, especially when we are launching drugs and where we need to shape the market, we need to go way beyond what we believe are the prescribers. So I think the universe is much bigger than what we usually tend to think it is. And this is why I think volume is also important, because it reaches people that are not they are not the usual suspects. So I would put volume in the basis. On top, tailorization with AI. And then I would try to streamline as much as possible at country level the insights. And Paul, I think, although I believe that deployment of insights is at the country level, insights are critical to shape strategy. So the acting on the insights is the headquarters, whoever takes the decision, they are called then. And many times I see actually the headquarters pushing more and more and more for insights to shape strategy. So I would say it's these three. So volume, tailorization with AI, and then a very streamlined process of cross-communication while the systems are not working well and they are not working together, cross-functionally in the country and region and country region, global exchange fast of insights and learning fast.
Well, thank you, Katerina. I think your interview for CEO is going very well. So that was a nice comprehensive answer. Yazan, sorry.
Paul, I'll end on a positive note.
Good.
So,
Still got 7 minutes left. You can take it backwards again before we finish. But yeah.
CEO for the day. I would do 5 things if I'm CEO of the day. Other than the normal things, but related to Omnichannel, I do 5 things. The first one is, and I already talked about it, start with behavior, not channels. Define 2, 3 clinical behaviors that you want to change for the tumor type or the tumor types that you're working on and the decision makers group, and work towards that. That's 1. 2, build a connected backbone across systems. So all of the tech discussion that we just had like 10 minutes ago. Move into modular, medically relevant content, which we didn't talk about today, but I think it's very, very important to talk about modular content because it's one of the backbones of enabling AI, which is my next step. Integrating field, digital, medical into one influence system, making sure that everybody has collaboration between each other, the humans and the technologies. Not every digital channel is optimizing for itself, but we're optimizing all together for these behaviors. And finally, measure outcomes, not activity. So measure the outcomes that you have set up at the beginning of the 5 bullet points that I listed, and not only the activity that we are doing from inside out. And I saw a lot of comments in the chat talking about the customer's point of view, and I think this is where we're talking about the customer's point of view, the outcomes that we're bringing to the customer. So go customer or outside in rather than inside out. I hope that was positive enough.
That was very positive and constructive as well. Thank you, Yazan. You are confounding all expectations. Shaima.
Okay, I'll try to add something that hasn't been mentioned, which is going to be tough. But I would say, based on what Yazan and Katerina were saying, one thing I would definitely do is make every campaign in the organization an experiment. And what I mean by that is not launch anything that doesn't have a defined hypothesis. What are we trying to achieve? What behavior do we want to shift? How are we going to measure it? And tell me what that minimum threshold is where you're going to know that, yes, we've done it, we've achieved it. And unless the team can define that for me, it's not happening. Now, in terms of what other things I would do if I were CEO, I would try to create a culture of, I'll say, like psychological safety around evidence-based experimentation, sticking to the experiment theme. So create a culture where teams can test without career risk or anything like that, where failure is treated as a data point, as a source of information and not something to be blamed or criticized or anything like that. And having all teams, including medical compliance, be a proactive partner in the planning rather than teams that are seen as a roadblock, right? So everyone working together. And AI is very, very important to customer engagement. I think we've all seen how it can take large amounts of data and help us gain insights from that so we can engage our customers better. Making sure we're thinking about treating AI as a business transformation and not just a technology deployment, right? Making sure we're building into our governance, having clear owners, having clear SLAs, adoption targets. So those are I'll say the three things I would do if I was CEO.
And another excellent pitch for your next promotion, Shoma. So thank you so much. You may have noticed that we've got to 3 minutes before the webinar ends, and we haven't actually focused on AI. And it's obviously impossible to do it justice in 3 minutes. But I do want to just find out if there's anyone that feels particularly passionately about whether or not we're getting it right or wrong at the moment. You can see I have put a poll question up. I can see about a quarter of you have answered it, not very many of you yet, so please do answer it. And I just want to hear on a voluntary basis if there's anyone in the panel that wants to share a strong feeling about this. And Katerina, I know, for example, for you, it's something that you may have some, I think you said you had some nightmares about it at the beginning of the event, but at the same time, I know it's a big focus of yours.
Yes.
So anything that you want to share, please do.
I think we are experimenting in a lot of fronts, at least in Novartis: training, insight collection, and content tailoring. So we are experimenting in a lot of fronts, and it's already too late. I don't know how many, and this is the number we need. I don't know how many HCPs are already getting clinical information out of large language models and ChatGPT, and getting very important information from ChatGPT. And if we are not influencing large language models, they cannot be influenced. If we are not generating enough data volume out there so that the large language models will grab this into ChatGPT, we will lose this race. So this is where I am very passionate about what I am very passionate.
And I've just got time for one more succinct contribution from anyone that wants to share.
Paul, you're bringing me back to my negative self.
Apart from Yazan, anyone want to share except for yourself?
Daima, maybe, or Julie, do you want to?
I'm joking. If you have anything to say, please do.
I just want to say one thing. I think the promise of AI is very positive, and I think we can do a lot with it. But putting AI on a broken process will only exaggerate the brokenness of it.
Indeed. I'm actually writing my description for my next webinar, and I think I used that exact sentence, so that's a little bit spooky. Thank you. Julie, did you, I thought I saw you unmute, but Shima's unmuted. So
Yeah, I unmuted myself because I wanted to put a positive spin on what Yazan
go for it.
And that is basically, what can we do about it, right? So, even if you're not CEO, start with that, like drive this change at your organization where you try to fix what's broken, and maybe not broken, but just making sure you have one place where you can get all your insights, whether it's email, media, medical, etc. Make sure you have this data accessible and usable by AI, because if you don't, well, that AI is definitely not going to do too well.
There you go, Yazan. AI is an opportunity to repair the process. You heard it. Julie, do you have a final succinct word?
I was actually just putting it into the chat. I agree with Shima. I think AI is about what we want it to do for us rather than like how do we leverage it. It's just how do we leverage it for what we want. And I think it's just a matter of working with your teams to actually design it in the way that it can be most useful. And many solutions that have already been developed to do that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everybody. You can hopefully see a slide in front of you showing you about the next event. And I'm also just sharing the results of that final AI poll. But the main thing I want to do is to say a quick thank you. We've hit the hour. I don't want you to be late for your next meeting, but I really appreciate the time that our panelists have given us today. I also really appreciate those of you who are listening, especially those who are making sure this was a multi-way dialogue in the chat window. It's been really interesting to read your comments as well and make sure that we collectively figure this out. If we don't do it together, unfortunately, we're not going to make a difference that's actually going to matter. Special thanks again to Julie and her team at BGB. Been amazing partners for making this event happen, bringing such an important topic to ultimately so many of us, but also, of course, the patients at the end of the day that are very much depending on us having a bit more urgency over solving this exact topic. Right, as I say, I don't want you to be any later for your next meeting. Huge thanks. Do share in the chat any other ideas or suggestions for what you'd like to see us do in the future, whether or not you want us to continue on this oncology specific topic. And I'll be really, really glad to see you next time. Thank you once again. And I hope that the rest of your week, which I realize is coming to an end for so many of us, hooray, goes well. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you soon.